Commence primary ignition.
This is the way. I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold.
What is up, all of you Ugnaughts and Jawas out there, and welcome back to yet again another edition of the Book of Boba Fett After Show, presented by Mando Talk. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the final one, at least, unless they decide to make a season 2. But thankfully, and luckily for all of us, DJ Foster is here to discuss this finale with us. DJ, what is up? How is life? What did you think of the finale? Let's just go ahead and get after it.
Life is good. Life is in the non-Star Wars side of things. It's fantastic.
Nice.
Even in the Star Wars things, it's pretty fantastic. I have some complaints. I'll be honest and upfront, but not very many, to be completely honest with you. I've been able to think it through. There's a reference I didn't intend.
Love it.
Didn't mean to. I was able to think it through honestly and kind of just figure out where I really stand. And I think maybe our listeners and maybe even you, Kayla, will be surprised by a few of the things I have to say tonight. So we'll see. But as far as I'm concerned, great finale for the most part. Maybe there's an issue here or two, but very few, honestly. What about you, man?
Dude, life is great. Life is phenomenal. And life is phenomenal because we continue to get Star Wars content. Honestly, that's just kind of how I'm feeling right now. But I'm kind of like you. Yes, I have my own personal kind of complaints. They're not too big, honestly. I have to admit this. On the first viewing, after I got done watching the finale, I paused, and I think if I remember correctly, DJ, I texted you, maybe it was Zach or somebody else, maybe Discord, who knows? It all kind of blends in sometimes. I said,
especially that early in the morning.
Yeah, that's true. I got to think about this one for a while, honestly, was kind of my initial reaction to it. I got to collect my thoughts. Again, very glad, very luckily, we wait until Thursday to do a spoiler discussion so we can wrap our heads around it. And on a second viewing, it was better. I think I was able to leave all the expectations at the doorstep and not take them in as I viewed it. And so I enjoyed it a lot more. And I know I've seen people that absolutely loved it. I've seen people that absolutely despised it. And again, kind of what we do here on Spoiler Discussions is we try to focus on the positives and the things that we really enjoyed. And, we'll share our complaints whenever we get to them. And like right now, I'm just not really feeling negative. So we'll see. We'll see what comes out. But any final things that you want to say before we actually get into this spoiler discussion?
It's hard to feel upset when we were dropped so much information over the last 24 hours about other Star Wars projects, namely a different stranger from the desert emerging. So I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about that. Maybe even tonight, but definitely on Tuesday. So y'all come back Tuesday to hear more about all the news that has come out, and who knows what else is going to come out between now and then.
There is a ton of news, and they've already signed off on things coming next. Kenobi, let's be real, Kenobi's dominating right now. Twitterverse,
it's
interwebs, everywhere. Yeah. People are ready for it, and we'll see. We'll see if that's really even next. I still feel like we have to address Bad Batch Season 2, but we will shelve that conversation for another time. So let's get into our spoiler discussion of Chapter 7 of the Book of Boba Fett. In the Name of Honor, directed by Robert Rodriguez, written by Jon Favreau. Before we get going into the content, of course, In the Name of Honor, when I saw that title, I just had one of those reactions of, okay, that sounds pretty good. Let's get to it. DJ, what were your thoughts on the title?
The first word that came to mind was the word respect. just the idea of there being a mutual respect between, and that I feel like that was very clear before anything else happened in the episode, that it was going to be a mutual respect between Din Djarin and Boba Fett. I never thought that it was going to lead really typically anywhere else. As far as you think about honor, you think about, I think about movies and shows like Saving Private Ryan or Band of Brothers, and honestly, this episode of Book of Boba gave me Young Guns vibes. I don't know if anybody's ever seen, if y'all have seen Young Guns with Emilio Estevez, and like Charlie Sheen is in there as well. But that is a movie where, I don't know, you go through all these different things and you start to realize, okay, there's a certain camaraderie between these characters. And I felt that way about Din and Boba just based on the title. I mean, I'm just gonna be really honest, just based on the title, I got a lot of feels in that realm. And then as the episode progressed, it just solidified that for me. So I'm with you. This is a perfect name for this finale. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah, and you nailed that on the head. I mean, the relationship that we get from Boba and Din continued in this was one of those things that was really superb. And so I can't wait to get to those moments. But before we get going, of course, I do want to say this. What's up, RFB? What's up, Rafa? What's up, Ryan V? We see you. And keep on bringing the comments. Keep on bringing the Mando chats, as we are now officially calling that. Keep on bringing them to us, and we'll gladly discuss as we go along through this episode and final episode of the Book of Boba Fett. So let's get to the opener. Of course, the opener is kind of the segment of the episode where stuff goes down before we actually get the title. Boba and Fennec, we start off visiting the aftermath of the bombing in the sanctuary, where Din Djarin arrives, claiming that Cobb Vanth is raising a garrison for them and will arrive with reinforcements. Now, this may have been something that I missed last chapter. I may have just completely overlooked what Din and Cobb said when they were sitting down together, but I didn't realize for Din to get Cobb Vanth to join that Din promised to shut down the spice trade altogether. Maybe that just completely went over my head, but big time, the big takeaway of mine from this was that Fennec was not really pleased with this initially, because that's just a lot of loss of business if they were going to completely shut down that for them once they officially took over. But Boba Fett does end up agreeing to those terms. What did you think of just that revelation? I mean, it sounds like I'm assuming that was probably revealed last week, but I may have just completely missed it.
I think it was not so much revealed as it was implied.
Gotcha.
I felt the implications of that, especially in the conversation that followed between Cobb Vanth and Cad Bane.
Mm-hmm.
I really felt like, okay, there's something more going on with the spice trade stuff. And that to me was in retrospect, the solidification that the Pikes were the main big baddies of this series, which is, again, in retrospect, I'm totally okay with.
Mm-hmm.
I think other people may, not, take that on. But as far as that being the, I don't know what you'd call it, just the terms of agreement, I guess, as to whether or not the people of Freetown and Cobb Vanth would show up. I thought that was kind of like, okay, it was definitely implied. It's kind of how I looked at it.
Yeah. I think you nailed that again. Okay, so next up here, the Mod Squad convinces Boba and company to stay in the sanctuary while they wait for reinforcements. And the reason for that is to protect the people of Mos Espa. If I'm being honest, okay, I did say I might not get negative, but this is one of those things that I may have seen a little bit of a complaint for, as far as like, why does the Mod Squad all of a sudden care about the betterment of Mos Espa? Because earlier in this show, they were just doing whatever made their lives better a little bit, as far as just causing some havoc, as far as getting water and doing those things. But maybe they're just a group of for the people kind of crew. Like they realized that water was way too expensive, so they did something about it. So maybe that's just one thing that I'm internally struggling with. What are your thoughts on it?
I kind of saw it more as, don't mess with us because this is our home. And that's why they didn't like the idea of the guy from Dodgeball,
yeah.
Of all the people to get a character poster, why did that guy get a character poster? But that's a few weeks ago. I don't think I was on that. Maybe I wasn't on that episode of Mando Talk. I don't know. But anyway, all that to say, I think it was more of a, hey, this is our neighborhood. Don't mess with our neighborhood. Take ownership of, I know this is kind of ridiculous, but I've heard people around my area will say they'll own the area code on their phone, which I think is dumb. But I mean, I've seen people get it tattooed on them. I'm like, that's too much dedication to an area. I don't know. That's ridiculous. But all that to say, I think that's a good indicator of how the mod squad operates. I think that they're like, this is my place. And so knowing that Boba cares so much, I think they're kind of going with the idea of, okay, you care, therefore I can look up to you. And that makes me care more. You kind of fall in line behind a leader you can really get with. I think it's kind of the idea there.
Yeah.
That's how I took it.
No, and yeah. I think you've turned me. I think you've made me kind of see that perspective a little bit better. And that's what this is all about, Open spoilers. Yeah. We'll see what we thought, and hopefully by the end of it, maybe we enjoy everything about this episode fully. Okay, next up, Cad Bane. Ladies and gentlemen, Cad Bane is in Mos Eisley,
in full force,
visiting the Pike leader and Mayor Mok Shaiz to inform them of his venture to Freetown. It is revealed that the Pikes killed the Tusken Raider tribe, and they left evidence that the Nikto speed bikers did it. So it wasn't Cad Bane at all. It seems like Cad Bane really has just recently got into this, so who knows why he's necessarily there, who necessarily hired him. I mean, we're led to believe it's the Pikes, but speculation's always going to speculate. So we'll see maybe if that story gets told one day somewhere. But that was one reveal that I was honestly surprised by, that it wasn't actually just Cad Bane, it was just the Pikes. Then next up, another big takeaway of mine from this scene was that the mayor was definitely not a fan of the bombing of Garsa's sanctuary. Big time reveal for me there. So the mayor, I feel like, kind of got played throughout all of this, kind of like a red herring. Like we didn't like him, but he was really just getting tricked the whole time. And then Cad Bane reveals that he has an idea to draw Boba Fett out of the sanctuary, and that's kind of where the episode then begins. But DJ, what did you think on this first reintroduction of Cad Bane and kind of getting some more dialogue and just more details of him being there? What did you think of this opener for his character?
Well, I was never really sold on the idea that Cad Bane took out the Tusken tribe, although I like that could have been a play, how they made it, all work together. But, there really was no reason for Cad Bane to have done that unless he knew Boba was living amongst the Tuskens. And the only way he would have known that is if the Pikes had said to Cad Bane, okay, this is the guy who's running us, out of this area. And that just didn't seem like it would have been a possibility given the story, because how would Cad Bane know that Boba survived the Sarlacc pit or any of that? There's just no way of knowing, really, I feel like. So for me, that was one of the better things that we got to see, was that it was the Pikes all along, kind of a deal. And I think that's an important thing to remember, especially in the retrospect of all 7 episodes. And this is one of those things, like it's kind of like when you go back and rewatch Solo. The first time you watch it, you're kind of like, I'm not sure about this. And then when you rewatch it, you're like, this is a freaking awesome movie. As you continue to watch it. And my wife, Hillary, has said so many times that she loves Solo because it's the one Star Wars movie she can walk into without needing to know background information.
Fair.
And that's accurate about that. I mean, that's the most accurate thing I can think of when it comes to Star Wars, as far as from an outside perspective. And I think as time goes on, we'll say the same thing about Book of Boba Fett. I really do. If you were to sit down and binge 7 episodes, which that would take probably about 6.5, 7 hours, if you're going to be, that's a whole day right there. But if you do it, awesome, and you're going to get to see a full story. And it marries so well with Mandalorian and Return of the Jedi, which is perfect in my opinion. Now, as far as the mayor goes, it reminds me a lot of the series Gotham. I don't know. Did you ever watch Gotham, Caleb?
I did not.
When it was on? I remember watching it when I was in college. I was in my 3rd year of college when it premiered, and me and a couple of my buddies, we would go over to a friend's house or gang up in someone's dorm room and just huddle around a laptop and watch it together. We were so obsessed with it. Well, in the first few seasons, maybe the first season for sure, you really see how the mayor of Gotham is not really. He's just a puppet, and he ends up getting played. It's not really a big spoiler. It's a minor spoiler, I guess, for Gotham, but that mayor ends up getting played, and clearly this mayor here, Mark Shaiz, gets played too. So things like that, I think, are important notes to remind us what this series was inspired by.
Sure.
Mafia and, a little bit of Western, spaghetti Western in a way. If you really look at it, those spaghetti Westerns are called that because they were filmed in like Italy and Europe. That's kind of why they're initially called that, and some Italian directors as well. But at the same time, you get the mafia side of it. You just draw a line, Italian mob, boom, you've got kind of your angle. So all of this to me is great setup. I think, again, in retrospect, is going to play a huge part in this. And I'm going to say that word a lot, I feel like, tonight.
Sure.
But this is where I'm at, and that's kind of what I'm thinking on it. If I look back over the last few weeks, I'm going to think, you know what? This was good. This is good stuff, and I don't mind how this went at all.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I look forward to doing is going back and watching all of them consecutively and seeing how my perspective changes instead of it going like week to week, week by week schedule, because when you're going week by week schedule, it's easy to be caught up in, oh, that episode wasn't as cool as I was hoping for, because every week you're wanting the most epic thing. But I think once you sit down, you watch it all play out, and right. Like you said, in retrospect, we know that it was the Pikes all along. And I think, once you can get off the speculation high horse that I was on the entire show, the entire season,
all were, though.
We can appreciate it a little bit more for sure.
Oh, no, we were all on the speculation train.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with being on the speculation train.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, as RFB has been fantastic about reminding us over the last several weeks, is just manage those expectations. And it's so hard to do that when you want something so epic to happen, like Kira showing up, or Han Solo. I know it was one of our Mando chat people the other day said, I think Han's going to show up and drop off Grogu. And I'm like, there is no chance of that happening. Yeah. But things like that go into our minds. But again, you go back and look at retrospect, it changes so much of what your perception was initially, that when you can sit down and watch it as one thing, you end up enjoying it more, I feel like. At least that's from my perspective.
Yeah. No, and I find myself that way with a lot of things, too. With a lot of things. Now, speaking of somebody dropping off Grogu, it wasn't Han Solo, but it was another legacy character, and that's what's next in this episode. An X-Wing flies into Mos Eisley to Pelimoto's. Grogu arrives, and it's revealed that R2-D2 flew the X-Wing the whole way, which I thought was pretty cool. Grogu is wearing the Beskar under his normal kind of robe, so he made a decision. Now, I would love some more background behind that decision, but hey, it's all good. We can just assume how it went. And then before, we continue with the plot, Grogu gets to sit down and enjoy a nice meal there as Pelimoto greets him, says his name is basically trash and whatever. But what did you think of Grogu's arrival?
It seemed inevitable, The truth is, Chapter 5 really answered that question for us. We already knew he was coming as early as Chapter 5 because the droid compartment on the N1 was hollowed out with a nice little dome there.
Big facts.
Come on. I mean, that was just the most obvious thing in the whole series, is that was going to happen. So it never was a thing for me to consider, okay, where is he going?
Sure.
A couple of people asked me about, where do you think he's going to go with Jedi? I think he's going to be a Mandalorian. I'm like, I don't know. I just kept it secret to myself. I was just like, I already know he's becoming, he's going to go back to being a foundling. Mm. And for me, I love this. There's this connection that the Beskar armor he's wearing, the chainmail, looks like Mithril, the shiny shirt that Frodo wears in Lord of the Rings underneath his stuff. So the reveal of that to me was very similar to Fellowship of the Ring. And I'm going to go back to Lord of the Rings a lot. I think our listeners know that. But for me, I thought it was fantastic. I think the decision makes sense. And as you've said so many times, Caleb, Disney wants to get that paper. They want to see, as Bright Suns Media says here in the chat, they want to see Grogu in the Starfighter car seat.
Facts.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's, I think we all want to see that. And I know Disney and whoever the heck's in charge over there wants to see all that too. So,
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, this is kind of one of the things that I am still struggling with as well. So bringing something up here. First of all, Grogu coming back, awesome. Him showing up this way, R2-D2 dropping him off, incredible. Loved it. The only thing that I'm struggling with regarding this is I just feel like the separation of Grogu and Din Djarin in season 2 might not just be as emotional as it was in the moment, because they got back together so quick. It seems like quicker than what we had anticipated. So that's just one thing that kind of went along with that, and that's probably why on Tuesday during our predictions I didn't mention Grogu, because I didn't necessarily feel like we absolutely needed to see him. But boy, the payoff as far as what occurs with Grogu and Din Djarin later in the episode was well worth it. So there's pros and cons. Obviously, the pros probably outweigh the cons because it's Star Wars, and anything positive in Star Wars is 2 thumbs up from me.
Thumbs up. Yeah, I agree with that. I really do agree with that for sure. And it always makes for fun content whenever you see people happy. You know, you want to make the viewers want to be happy. You know, storytellers want to make people happy, and Grogu does that.
Yes, he does, and he gets an audience that admittedly might not always check in, and I would say that my wife probably falls under that category, and many others fall under that category. But
yes, absolutely.
Very cool that he came in. Let's go ahead and continue in the episode. We are told, or it's revealed, that kind of the stakes, what Boba and Fennec plan to do to kind of understand what the Pikes are up to. Gamorreans are at the Klatooinian starport. Karsantin is in the Trandoshan territory, and the Mod Squad is in the Aqualish Workers District, keeping an eye on all of the Pikes' movements. That's the plan. Now, it's later revealed that maybe they shouldn't have necessarily been as worried about the Pikes, but maybe those potential crime lords and those species around them. But hey, it is what it is. But that set the stakes, and we'll come back to the things that transpire at those different locations. But let's get to the next moment where Cad Bane and Boba Fett come face to face. Man, was this awesome. It was cool to see them just talking back and forth and just giving each other lip. Bane reveals to Boba that he paid a visit to Freetown, and he reveals that he wiped out Cobb Vanth and that basically none of them are coming. Bane reveals also that the Pikes wiped out the Tuskens to Boba, which basically sets Boba off, and tensions begin to rise. It looks like Boba's about to get that EE3 rifle and just spray, and who knows, and well, we get what would have happened later in the episode, but really great tension. And then Fennec steps in. She's the calm head, she's the clear head, she's the cool one, talks Boba out of a shootout, saying basically, you know what, we'll do this when we deem necessary. So you do not fall into this trap, Boba. And she luckily talks him out of that. What were your thoughts on this face-to-face? I thought it was incredible.
Brightson's Media took the words out of my mouth in the chat, said tension. The tension was real here. And I think it was real, you could definitely feel it, even if you don't know anything about Cad Bane and Boba's history. And we actually get a lot of history through their 2 encounters in this episode that wasn't previously on screen, I don't think. And at least to my knowledge, we didn't see a whole lot of Cad and Boba interaction, if any, in Clone Wars. And that may be something that they bring into Bad Batch, which I think would be beneficial at this point to give a little backstory.
That's a great point, because they've made the effort to name drop Boba Fett in the Bad Batch as well. I do think that is a high possibility.
Not to mention that Cad Bane abducted who is essentially Boba Fett's sister.
Yep.
You know, so it makes sense that would be a revisit. And again, we know from Book of Boba Fett that Fennec and Boba can't meet until for the first time until
right
Book of Boba Fett. So having those 2 things happen side by side will be a lot of fun to see how I don't remember who the showrunner is for Bad Batch, because it's not Filoni. Somebody took over that for Filoni. But either way, whoever's in charge, that's going to be fun to see what they do with the writing on that. If they do decide to do that. But as far as what we're talking about right here, this face-to-face the amount of tension that it created actually made for the ending fight between the two of them that much better. And I would have liked to have seen like a full day pass where they're like held up in the sanctuary Alamo style. I would have preferred to see that. Now I'm okay with it happening in a whole day. That's kind of like a small complaint I have, is that I wish it had taken place over the course of like a day, a day and a night, but and maybe like a night raid scenario or something like that. I don't know. Maybe they don't do that because they already spent a lot of time at night with Boba in the first 4 chapters of this series. But whatever on that. But anyway, all that to say, this whole instance where Fennec talks Boba out of the shootout was great. And she, before anybody else, understands how upset Boba would be over hearing this information, because she was there when Boba wiped out those Nikto speed bikers.
Right. Yeah, she gets the hatred that he had toward what he believed the group of people that wiped out his tribe, his crew. Shout out to Michelle saying hello in the chat. XDO12 says Fennec was the real Boba Fett all along. I like that one. Rafa says this moment was awesome. When you know all the background of them, you can enjoy it too much. Yeah, and I would say this scene, and I would love to be in the eyes and in the brain of somebody that's never seen these character or never seen Cad Bane before. But this scene, because we know of these two characters, it really was we were fed with these moments.
Yeah. And somebody who'd be really great for that would actually maybe be Zach Horvath, because if, to my knowledge, he's still never seen Clone Wars.
But he has seen, because he did Bad Batch spoilers with me, so he has seen Cad Bane.
That's right.
Yeah.
I knew that. I've forgotten. Well, maybe he's not the right person to ask, but I think my wife would be a good person to ask. If I could ever get her to sit down and watch these shows with me, it'd be great. But
there you go.
She's just not into it. We do Marvel together.
Sure.
I've let the nerd card go on Star Wars. It's okay. I just do that
enough. I have to say, before we leave this, one of my favorite shots of this entire series was the sun fade, or like getting behind Cad Bane, like it was above his head and then it goes to behind his head. That the way that was shot, and I know online there's a lot of you just roasting Robert Rodriguez with some shots, but this was one shot that I am dying on a hill was one of the best ones of the show so far. Was that Cad Bane frame?
It was a perfect parallel to Mando season 1, because
Yes.
There's that. Did you notice that initially or no? Because I noticed it right off the bat. I mean, the second the sun came behind Cad Bane, I was like, oh, it's like that shot in Mandalorian. Like, I was like, oh, there it is. I was stoked about seeing that shot. So for me, it made all the sense in the world that was the direction that Robert Rodriguez went with.
Yeah.
I thought that was a beautiful moment. Yeah, absolutely beautiful moment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And something else, as you mentioned, Mandalorian season 1. I just thought of for a moment how there are kind of similarities here between Boba's finale and season 1 Mando finale, of them being stuck in that cantina and being the stormtroopers and Moff Gideon just kind of keeping them trapped, and them having to come up with a way to get out of there. And then all of a sudden IG-11 comes and rescues, similar to how we have these groups that come in and rescue Boba and Din Djarin at the end of the day. So hey, there's some parallels. It's poetry. It rhymes, folks. It rhymes.
I was going to say that.
Zach says, I will say, I wish we got more of Cad Bane if this is how the season was going to end. I think that's a fair point. This is something that I said to DJ off air. I'm excited to continue to get Cad Bane in animation. I feel like for some reason that character just thrives in that format. So we'll still be getting him some more, but I get it. I mean, in live action, yeah, it was pretty cool to see him. So I get what you're saying there. Anything else there in the chat that we should mention? Let's see.
Ryan tells us just to skip to the end, and to him I say no.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're here for the ride, baby. Let me tell you, you're here for the ride, even if it's on a Vespa scooter in Star Wars.
Fair.
You're here. It's going.
Fair. And then Zach, of course, calls it out. He says, I know you talking about the spinning twirl shot from the mod. Yeah. Reading between the lines there. But it's not something that bothered me, I have to admit. For me personally, it didn't bother me. I know it is bothering some people, but hey, It is what it is.
I'll give my take / roast on that shot here in a minute.
Okay.
We'll get to it.
All right, fair enough. All right, let's get to next up in the episode. The crime lords, then it's revealed that they set up Boba Fett and they begin attacking the gang spread across Mos Espa. Gamorreans fall to their death, some mods are killed, and Kersantin is badly injured. While all of this goes down, Fennec heads to Mos Eisley to find the Pike Syndicate leader. That's her next plans, because at this point, I guess it's you can't kill the snake without ripping off its head kind of a thing. And then on her way, though, she clears out some Aqualish to allow the mods to head to the sanctuary. Very crime lord, underground type of plot moment here. What did you think of this reveal? For me, I wasn't surprised at all. I know that was, in hindsight, I just now thought of it. Didn't you say one of your predictions was that they were going to stay completely out of it? But I'm actually kind of glad that it turned out this way, because it created that tension and that war buildup that I felt like was deserving of a finale.
It created the tension, but it wasn't. It created more tension. I'll give you that. I still would have preferred it just be, let's just focus on the Pikes.
Yeah.
I would have rather that been the case, because there would have been a little bit more to develop for people who weren't familiar with the Pikes, unlike us hardcore fans. But it's not a deal breaker for me. I'm just sad the Gamorreans fell to their death.
Dude, that was tough.
That was like, normally it's like, if you watch Return of the Jedi, you're like, yeah, you're rooting for the Rancor to eat the piggy, but and Rafa throws these pig emojis in our chat. I think it's hilarious. But
well, I mean, they're squealing like a pig the whole way down.
Yeah, and they probably would. I mean, an actual pig falling off a cliff would squeal, I feel like. But all that to say, you know what? It's not a big deal at the end of the day. It's, it kind of whittles down the team that Boba has to work with. The thing that and this is how dorky I am with Star Wars, I've always thought that like Mos Eisley and Mos Espa were like really far away from one another.
Yeah.
They're like twin cities, I
really?
think, at this point. That's how else could Fennec get to Mos Eisley so quickly? I mean,
that's for me something that I've like a running joke behind the scenes for me is just like how fast Boba and Fennec have been able to go from palace to city just walking. So I mean, I feel like all rules regarding that have been just scrapped.
It's like in the Muppet movies, they just travel by map. That's what they're doing. They're just traveling by. It's like Indiana Jones, the red dot, and then you're just there.
And I know you won't get this reference, but maybe some of you in the chat, it's what Game of Thrones ended up turning into as well. Like people were traveling by ship, and it's a long distance, but they were there overnight. So it's just one of those things where it's just moving the plot along just way too quickly for common sense to actually be applied, but whatever.
Yeah. That's where we go too deep and to analyze too much, and then we reel it back, But still, I would be curious to see what the actual distance is between those two cities.
Sure. Yeah, I would.
Personally, that's kind of my take on all this.
Absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and continue to move forward here. Pikes begin arriving at the sanctuary to begin all-out war. Din Djarin, this was a really cool moment for me. Din Djarin doubles down on sticking with Boba to fight. Boba asks Din if he buys into that bantha fodder as far as like the, I guess, Mandalorian way, kind of. He questions him. Din says he does, and I thought it was really cool when Boba says good. Like, yeah, I'm proud of you for sticking to your ways and just kind of sticking to it. I respect that from Boba, even though obviously he doesn't associate with that whatsoever. Then Din and Boba commit to a plan, and that quote is made of "die in the name of honor." And Mando says, "This is the way." And I really thought there for a second that Boba Fett was going to say it back, and if he had, I would have lost it. What did you think of this dialogue moment here before the stakes got high between these two?
I'll walk backwards through what you just talked on.
Okay,
so
do it.
The "this is the way" scene, I thought that was great because to me it said from Din to Boba, it was, I consider you a part of my tribe,
Ooh,
my clan. And that's how it felt to me. And I love that. Again, I said at the top of the show, like a brotherhood, a brother in arms type of situation. And this is where we get that in the name of honor, tagline is just explicitly said in this episode, which I don't think has just straight up happened throughout the Mandoverse thus far. Maybe the child, that's about it. But other certain things weren't just said as far as the title goes, not like this one. So I loved that. Now then I want to go back to the scene where Boba says, do you believe in that, really going to believe in that bantha fodder? As a Christian, as a professing Christian, I've had those kinds of conversations with people who don't believe like me. They're like, are you really going to believe that? And I'm like, yeah. And then I've also had conversations with those same people who will then say, I'm glad you can believe that. I can't. And I asked them, why do you think, or why are you okay with the fact that I believe it? And they're like, well, at least you have something to believe in, is what I hear a lot. And that to me is a perfect, parallel to what we're seeing here. Boba's like, we're in a hopeless situation. And Din's like, well, I've got some hope. I can hold on to a little bit of hope here. And for Din also, he's been through a situation like this.
Yes, he has.
Season 1. So he knows what it's like to go through something like this. And I think that's something very cool for Boba to understand maybe, and for Din to also say, wow, I've been here before. History's repeating itself. And I think that's a beautiful take on well, the Mandalorian religion as it has been up to this point, because this is the first time I've ever looked at the Mandalorian religion and thought, this is not a cult. This is something that's actually like I could see, like, if I lived in this world, I could get behind that,
Well, it seems like Din Djarin may be kind of changing the quote unquote the way a little bit. To make it more so non-cultish.
Well, he has, it's true. Well, he was excommunicated from the cult,
right,
so to speak, and so. And there's going to be some, and I can't wait for his journey come the end of this year, as it's been rumored. So when we get to Mando 3, it's going to be something very fun to watch as he works through what is the way.
Yeah.
And to him right now, the way is to stand in arms with a fellow warrior, bounty hunter, however you want to look at it. That's how I look at this. So by far my favorite scene in the entire episode. It might be my favorite scene in the whole series of Book of Boba Fett, because it really was so emotionally driven and so well done. And you can really feel Pedro Pascal's performance come through in that voice work. I don't think he was actually on set.
No, I don't think so either. I think he was too busy with Last of Us for sure.
If he was on set for this show, it was Chapter 5. I will say that. But then again, because if you look at Chapter 5 versus Chapter 6, really, I'm looking at the neck. The neck on Din Djarin looks thinner in 6 versus 5. So I'm thinking Pedro may have been in 5 and maybe not 6. It doesn't matter. As far as Chapter 7 goes, the voice work Pedro did, he really, for me, and I've said this on the show, I would rather just someone like Brendan Wayne had just gotten the role than Pedro. Not to say that I dislike what Pedro's done. He's done a fantastic job. And it really shone through, I think, in this scene for me. To me, if this show gets an Emmy nomination, it's going to be because of this episode. And it's going to be because of that scene. I feel like, I just loved it that much.
I have to admit, I'll be shocked if this series gets any Emmy nominations based on the critic response. I will be now it'll probably get like sound and editing and stuff like that. But outside of your basic like Star Wars typical Emmy nominations, like it's not going to get best television show like The Mandalorian season 2 did. I don't expect that at all. But hey, we'll see. Okay, next up, the mayor's major domo. Top tier character at this point. Love this dude. I'm so glad he didn't get eaten by a Rancor. He interjects. It's revealed that he specialized in negotiations on Coruscant and offers to try to bargain with the Pikes for Boba. And basically, he trots out there thinking, ooh, I'm going to do something good. I'm going to help these guys get out of here. And basically, Boba's offer is death. And essentially what this allows is for Boba and Din to buy some time to eventually fly in on their jetpacks and begin wrecking shop. And this was phenomenal stuff here. It was great to see, first of all, the knee rockets, the whistling birds, the wrist rockets. Boba and Din just worked so well in these moments, and it was so cool. Now, they do end up getting kind of overwhelmed. I thought there for a second, you got those jetpacks, get back up there, get the high ground again once you start getting wiped. But hey, whatever, it is what it is. It was a pretty cool scene. What did you think of these moments?
It again, brothers in arms. I mean, it's what it felt like to me. It was. I'm trying to think of another comparison, that I haven't already made tonight. The best comparison I can think of is watching like Gimli and Legolas side by side at Helm's Deep. They're competing, but they're still like, fighting together. And then when you get to Return of the King, they're like, I never thought I would die side by side with an elf. And then he goes, how about side by side with a friend? To me, that was this moment, watching them it brought me so much joy. Like I was sitting on the couch, and on top of that, I was up at 3 a.m. with my daughter. So I'm holding my daughter, and I'm like, I'm enjoying Star Wars while holding my baby girl. And to me, there was just nothing sweeter in that moment for me. So watching that performance, was enhanced by having Timry with me, but it was also really cool to see, man, this is a legacy character and a now well-loved and well-established character being Din Djarin. The latter of those being just right there in face. So watching them get to fight next to each other and fly around. And I want to say this about the jetpack stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
At first, the jetpack flying to me seemed a little comical, but have you seen those videos of the people with the water jetpacks it's like connected to like a Sea-Doo and they're like flying all over the place? It looked like that. So I'm curious if the physics of it was applied from certain, elements like we have here in the real world. That's more me just being, I don't really think much on science, but I am right now. I've thought about science quite a bit recently. It's kind of weird. Because I hate math and science very much. Especially the chemical and like, the covalent bonds, and I don't get any of that and all that fun stuff. I have to say this though. I read a spoiler thread of this episode the other day, and the first comment on the spoiler thread was this big buffer post, and it was just a Wikipedia article on explaining the periodic table of elements.
Nice.
That cracked me up. It was just like, it was crazy long, but it was so funny. Anyway, off of that, love this scene. Knee rockets, wrist rockets, jetpacks, silver and green, just right there on the screen. It was makes my heart happy.
It was great.
I can die happy. Honestly.
There you go. Could. Well, I need to hold out until I see Kenobi.
I rescind my previous statement.
There you go. Well, it looks like they're overwhelmed, but then the people of Freetown arrive and begin taking out some pikes. Then the mods arrive, and even injured Black Chrysanthemum makes his way there and arrives as Boba kind of rescues him before he gets killed. So that was kind of a tender and cool little moment there that they got to share. And again, in my notes here, I'll just read it even though I feel like we already said this. Boba and Din worked phenomenally throughout this entire sequence, and it seems like they made the pikes fall back. But of course, as we know, once that happened, I kind of viewed the ticker to see how much time was left in the episode. There was way too much time for that to be it. So next thing you know, these big droids just show up. Never seen anything like these two massive droids, but they got some pretty hardcore shields because Boba uses his jetpack rocket. I don't remember what that thing's called. Do you remember the specific canonical name for that rocket that shoots out of his jetpack? Is there anything?
Is it not a rocket?
It might be. I don't know. I didn't know if there was like
I always thought it was a
canonical answer, and if there is,
no,
I'm sure.
I don't know.
I'm sure RFB might know, so he might be able to back us up there. But even that didn't take out the shield. So the mods, Freetown fighters, and Chrysanthemum begin to run away as Boba and Din attempt to distract the things. Heat nor the Darksaber, and I was very surprised to see the Darksaber make an appearance in this, but it makes sense, you know. He tries to penetrate the shield with it, doesn't work. Then Boba announces that he's going to bounce for some reinforcements. Din is there left to kind of protect the others, and he attempts to distract one of the droids. That's to try to help the others, but the other one still keeps chasing them, so he doesn't really protect him all that much, but he does a little bit. What did you think of these two droids? Because for me, I was a little put off by them initially, but then I thought, oh, those are kind of cool. I enjoy those. What do you think?
Well, first of all, the first thing they reminded me of was droidicas from the prequels. They looked like gigantic droidicas, and upon further investigation today on Facebook in another group, I found somebody had posted concept art pieces for Attack of the Clones by Doug Chang.
Really?
It was those droids.
Really?
Those were those were going to be used in the Battle of Geonosis.
Well, then I just need to retract everything I just said there. They're 100% awesome then.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting there watching like, these look like droidicas. And then I was like, I feel like I've seen these before.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know where. I mean, my parents love going to like Barnes and Noble, going to bookstores. So when I was a kid, I hated going to bookstores, but I would go to like where the Star Wars books were, and I would find like the visual dictionaries. And I know I saw that in a visual dictionary in a Barnes and Noble.
Nice.
And so that was years ago though.
Thank you,
that
Barnes
was probably
and Noble.
2000. Yeah, it was probably like 2000. Yeah. You and your coffee. Thank you so much. But like, it was years ago, probably 20 years ago. So now seeing it on Facebook today, I was like, oh my goodness, I remember seeing this. So it makes it so much better when you know that we have Boba Fett fighting something that would have been used in his first canonical appearance.
Man, good stuff. Good soup.
It's
good soup.
Good soup. Always. So to me, loved it. Everything about this stuff was great for me.
Yeah.
And again, watching back with retrospect, going to blow your freaking mind.
Think so too.
Good stuff.
Rafa says, yeah, the droids reminded me of droidicas from the Clone Wars, 100%. Michelle, don't worry about you being an English teacher and making a mistake. The other day, I completely goofed on some math. So, hey, all good. All good. Okay, so next up in the episode, some pretty cool stuff. Some pretty emotional stuff. Peli Motto arrives in the streets of Mos Espa with Grogu. And Grogu and Din embrace. And I'll be honest, folks, I always shoot you straight. The first time I was watching it, I was in this chair. It was 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm enjoying the finale of the Book of Boba Fett. And I see Grogu looks at Din, and then all of a sudden, the second week in a row, the cutest little jump ever, right into Din Djarin's arms. Cue the emotions, folks. It was flowing. It was flowing. I'm sitting here,
oh my goodness,
just sobbing at this moment. I talked about earlier.
That's great.
I talked about earlier in this episode in this podcast, as we were discussing, that I felt like it was too soon for this, but still, it paid off for me. So I can't really just be too negative about it. What did you think, DJ?
Again, holding my baby girl.
Yeah.
Watching a father-son reunion of sorts. It was definitely emotional for me, and I only got emotional because I was like, I know what that feels like. You're just like, I today I had to go get the oil changed in the car, and I come back and I see my daughter. I was like, I missed you. You kind of just do one of you get, teary-eyed, and then you're like, oh, suck it up, and you move on. But
sure.
At that point, I was definitely, as you put in our notes, emotional damage.
Dude, I thought of that TikTok as soon as I had those emotions, man. I wish I had a reaction video going so I could make that TikTok of me sobbing in this moment.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good moment for sure, and I'm still, the only problem I still have with it is, did Peli Motto take that droid taxi all the way from Mos Eisley?
Again, hey, it's just a let's speed up the plot. Let's go.
How far away is she? I don't know. I know I'm being dumb, but
well, admittedly, it was night when Grogu showed up, so.
Ooh.
So there was some time. They could have made that travel, that trek.
Headcanon accepted, Caleb. Headcanon accepted. Okay.
There you go. You made me feel better about the mods earlier, and now I'm making you feel better about travel and distance.
Fair enough.
Look, we can figure out the midpoint in between Mos Eisley and Mos Espa. You know, D equals the square root of.
Can you keep your isosceles triangles and such to yourself, please? I don't want to do it.
Triangles had nothing to do with that, but whatever.
It does if you factor in Freetown.
Oh, nice. Here we go. All right. Pretty cool stuff. Really great stuff here. It's just still kind of weird to me that we got these moments in Book of Boba Fett, admittedly, but hey, I'll take it. It was at the end of the day,
yeah.
It's not called the Book of Boba Fett. It's called Star Wars, the Book of Boba Fett.
Yes.
And we got some Star Wars, folks, and it was great Star Wars with these two characters reuniting.
And it's Mando season 2.5.
Yes.
That has been that. Now people have been making that a joke and not knowing that was already stated.
That was a thing. Yes. Yeah.
Have you seen these comments? I've seen these comments and tweets and Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. I've seen them everywhere. And TikTok were like, this is just Mandalorian season 2.5. Well, no crap. That's what Robert Rodriguez said 3 months ago.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I know people aren't going to go off and be like us and do a podcast and do all this fun research like we've been doing for a year now, you know, or you've been doing it for like 2 years almost at this point, if not 2 years. And I'm just sitting here like 3 years. Okay, excuse me. The pandemic screwed me up. I don't know what year it is. Okay. Anyway, all that to say, it's been being said. Okay. So for everybody out there who may be watching or listening and you are hearing us say this, tell your friends and family and random people on the internet who keep saying that jokingly that they have no idea what they're actually talking about. Okay. It's not that hard. Okay. I'm done. Soapbox exited. Go on.
Okay. Well, fair enough. Okay, so continuing in the episode, the Fett squad decides to stop running and stand their ground and fight the droid that's going after them. And Boba arrives on the Rancor. We get the moment. We didn't need any training, honestly. I feel like it's okay for me that we got all of that kind of behind the scenes. I have to admit, I got King Kong vibes as he was riding that Rancor, as it was going toe-to-toe with the droid. I felt like I was watching Kong vs. Godzilla again, just in Star Wars. So really cool, those scenes that were going down. As the Rancor is putting some damage on this thing, Din sneaks in the shields to stab the droid with the Darksaber. And then, of course, to wrap it all up, basically, Grogu steps out, uses the Force to prevent the droid from hurting Din, which it looks like it's fixing to, and the Rancor officially steps in and wipes that thing out. What did you think of death number 1 to droid number 1?
That was fun.
Well, and Boba being on the Rancor. Jeez, you haven't even talked about that yet. Speak on that.
Well, I'm going backwards. I liked watching Din have that close encounter with the droid and Grogu having his part. The way he caught that thing and you know, fell back and did his little flip. Hey, one of my predictions came true. He did a crazy flip. I just realized that was sitting here the whole time. He didn't do any flips. No, he did. He caught that thing and then went rolling backwards.
Oh, so we'll give it to you on a technicality.
Yeah. Regardless, and he did use the Force to create those flips. Just saying. But anyway, that was cool. I loved that. Now, as soon as Boba came through with the Rancor, I was like, oh, it's like Jaws meets King Kong, and I love the original 1933 King Kong. I love that. I adore that movie. So for me, it was like King Kong and Godzilla and Jaws and Boba Fett. And it was the dopest thing you'd ever seen. And all the sounds of the Rancor, it was just flooding back memories of enjoying Return of the Jedi when I was a kid. I mean, it was so much fun because I used to want to be Luke Skywalker and fight the Rancor. And now I'm like, can I be Boba Fett and ride the Rancor now? And
yeah,
it was so beautiful.
It was very much had to have been inspired by a kid playing with toys. Like
maybe
that is a just kid playing with toys kind of idea. You got Boba Fett, you got a Rancor. Let's have Boba Wreck Shop riding this thing. Incredible stuff. It was a kid's brain coming true, and it was great. And that kind of connects to RFB saying Star Wars is best when it's weird. Yeah, sometimes that is absolutely facts. It's weird to think about somebody riding a Rancor. Like you said, when you watch Return of the Jedi, you always thought, oh, I want to be Luke Skywalker and get rid of that stupid, ugly thing. Cool, big, but ugly thing that is just kind of weird.
Well,
but then Boba rides it, and you're like, my goodness.
And I don't want to beat a dead horse on this too much, but, when Lucas did Return of the Jedi, he likened the Rancor to the hero fighting the dragon to save the princess, which is what was happening, and to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But when you look at this, it's like, I'm not as familiar with Game of Thrones as you are, but I do know that in How to Train Your Dragon, they take the beast, and learn to ride it, and it becomes a part of their culture. I'm assuming that happens at Game of Thrones. Someone's got to ride a dragon in that series at some point.
Definitely. Dracarys.
Okay, see, that's the point though I'm making is you take the thing that's familiar and you say, okay, now let's say it's still familiar, but let's put it in a different context.
Yeah.
And again, I like your comparison that it's like a kid playing with toys, even because I know when I was a kid, I used to put Stormtrooper action figures in my N1 Starfighter, toy and fly around like that. I mean, I did that for hours as a kid. I was like, man, what if a Stormtrooper flew one of these things? I always thought stuff like that. So it makes perfect sense that somebody would say, what if Boba rides a Rancor? And here it is on screen for us to love forever. Poetry, just absolute awesomeness.
Yep, it rhymes. All right, well, let's keep going here in the episode. Freetown fighters and Mod Squad begin giving out some damage as Boba and the Rancor arrives to officially wipe out droid number 2. Peli and Major Domo meet, and they have some cool moments. I put here in the notes, give them a show, baby. They were hilarious together. That's sarcastic, folks. Trust me. I don't need to see a show between the two. That's a total joke, but hey, I love the two characters meeting.
What, though?
They bantered well together.
It would be great if in Mandalorian season 3 we have an episode where we revisit them and they're now partners or they're dating. I mean, Pelimoto already said she dated a Jawa. I mean, dating a Twi'lek isn't that far out of reach at this
probably
point,
an upgrade, honestly.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm not one of those shippers. I don't ship people, but I'm kind of shipping them. I like the idea of them being friends at the very least,
Oh, for sure.
I think it'd be a lot of fun to watch them interact more in the future, and I hope that is something that does happen, where we get that going on for sure.
Absolutely.
So but don't give them a show.
Fair enough. Well, the Pikes are slowly getting wiped out, and we get a moment where the Rancor gets to feast. I wanted to point that out. We talked about it. It wasn't the Major Domo. It wasn't the water dude earlier in the show, but it was just a Pike, of course. That's cool. Chops him in half. But then Cad Bane arrives, and we get this awesome moment number 2 between the characters of Boba and Cad Bane. Now, Boba uses flames to throw Boba off the Rancor, and the Rancor retreats from the flames. So that Rancor is completely free, so we'll come back to that in a minute. But Boba and Cad Bane come face to face once more. Of course, they have this showdown. Bane definitely wins the draw. Boba's armor saves him repeatedly, and Bane rips the helmet off of Boba. Bane wins. Okay, but then, of course, as villains always like to do, they talk too much sometimes. And so Cad Bane is talking, and I got these quotes, and I want to read them just because I think it'll help us maybe conversate some more about this moment. Bane says, "You've got your father's blood pumping through your veins. You're a killer. This isn't the first time I beat you out on a job. There's no shame in it. Consider this my final lesson. Look out for yourself. Anything else is weakness." Now, after he says that, I think that's when Boba takes over. He uses the gaffy stick, and then his final quote before the stabbing is, "I knew you were a killer." Pretty cool lines, great delivery, and especially the line that got, or the two lines that got the most interest for me is the fact that he's got his father's blood pumping through him, and the fact that he said, "This isn't the first time I beat you out on a job. Those two quotes really got my attention. DJ, what are your thoughts as you hear those quotes, and what are your thoughts on this showdown between these two phenomenal characters?
It seems to me, first of all, this is a pairing we need to see again in animation. We need to see. I think we really do need to see this in Bad Batch, because as I said earlier, we've got Omega and Cad Bane have met. Boba got the name drop. Clearly, this idea of teaching someone another lesson, as Cad Bane has said in this episode to Boba, means that he has taught him how to be a bounty hunter at some point.
Correct, yeah.
And I guess the natural progression, if you follow Clone Wars, would be after Aurra Singh's death, Boba would then have to find someone else to teach him. And I know he had Bosk, but like Cad Bane's a better option. Another issue, I do have a small issue with this, where he says, you've got your father's blood pumping through your veins, you're a killer.
Mm-hmm.
In Clone Wars, they repeatedly say that Jango is a man of honor. And I kind of take not issue with it. I guess, they didn't mess something up. So that's not what I'm saying. I think that what has happened is we're seeing a different perspective on Jango, where when you watch Attack of the Clones, you're like, he's the clone template and he has been hired to do a job, and he kind of meets his death by unfortunate circumstances, how I see it. Clone Wars are like, Jango Fett, honorable man. And then now we're like, he's a killer. I'm like, well, hold on a minute. Like, who is Jango is what I want to know at this point. Like, who is Jango Fett? And unfortunately, Tamara Morrison is too old at this point to play Jango Fett again, because he died young. So
Daniel Logan.
That's a good point. He just has to keep the helmet on the whole time, I guess.
Sure.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, it could be like a prequel to Attack of the Clones, maybe.
Oh, I would sign up for that. I'd sign up for that in a heartbeat. You give me a Daniel Logan prequel on Jango Fett, I will watch that until the cows come home. That's exciting. That's the best idea I have ever heard for a series. Some series, I'm like, I don't need that. That one, that would be awesome. I would love that. Now, okay, sorry, we're on a tangent now. I'm doing some like analyzing here just to kind of see what could be and what could have been. But all that aside, Boba does prove that he is a killer, which we've known Boba's a killer.
Yeah.
And it's almost as if Cad Bane's line is to the audience of who've been saying, Boba was so much better in Legends. He was so much cooler in the original trilogy, all that kind of stuff. And honestly, I've never really cared about those perspectives, but it's almost as if Cad Bane is saying, hey, all of you out there watching, if you wanted to see Boba Fett be a hardcore killer, this is that moment. Yeah. And that is a good thing for those particular fans to remember, I think. And it sucks to watch a character like Cad Bane die, though. Like, I know I predicted he would die, and I'm glad that I got that right, I guess, for the sake of calling it. But it feels bitter. It feels bittersweet to say, oh, man, that guy is awesome, and I want him to really be gone. And then there's some speculating he's not dead.
Right, and that was my immediate reaction. Like, when they pan the camera over him and we see this chest monitor beeping, that was one of the first things I sent you was...
you had to point that out to me. I didn't catch it the first time.
Yeah, I think that beeping monitor might be a lane to indicate that he could still make a comeback somehow, but as of right now, as of today, it's completely, I guess, open to interpretation. Obviously, most interpretations would lean toward Cad Bane is dead, but I just think that that's something to point out, something that we may come back to one day, that somehow that was an indicator of him actually surviving, but who knows? We'll see. I do want to point this out before we leave it, though. The plot or the decision to make Boba kill him with the gaffy stick was chef's kiss. Beautiful. As far as
that was perfect.
The development of that character, his connections with the Tuskens, and all of that being brought back for this moment. Because we got away from the Tuskens ever since, what, Chapter 4? I think chapter 4 was
Yeah.
the last time that
Yeah.
we saw them. So I thought that moment really meaningful, and I was very appreciative of that.
Yeah, I was too. And I noticed when he came back in on the Rancor, he didn't have the gaffy stick when he left the sanctuary. And when he came back on the Rancor, he had the gaffy stick on the jetpack, which
Yeah.
if we see Boba Fett again in the future, which I'm betting we will, because Mandalorian has already proven that the writers want to return to Tatooine on a regular basis. I mean, 2 seasons and now a whole series that's taking place on it, and another series coming soon that's going to take place not totally, but some on Tatooine, most likely. Kenobi, obviously, I don't think I need to say that at this point, but it says that they want to come back to Tatooine. And I'm kind of at a point like, why does everybody want to go back to Tatooine? But every time I think that,
You want to go back to Jakku?
I don't. I definitely don't want to go Jakku, but I'm cool with going to Tatooine at this point.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I'm not where I was at the beginning of the series, where I was like, I'm tired of Jawas, I'm tired of Tatooine, I'm tired of sand. It's coarse, it's rough, and gets everywhere. Now I'm like, I would like to be coarse and rough everywhere for the foreseeable future, which is weird.
Yeah.
Because like I don't know. It's Boba. The Book of Boba Fett has made me want to come back to Tatooine more often, and I think it has a lot to do with the prequel love we got and the original trilogy love we got, and
Sure.
there's just a lot going on here that has made me want more of what we've gotten.
Yeah.
So with all that being said, I've lost my train of thought.
That's fine.
Where, it happened. I'm so good at that.
Cad Bane is phenomenal. That's the train of thought. It was cool to see him make a live-action appearance. If he is, in fact, dead, I will be okay with it because, like I mentioned earlier in this episode, I think Bane is best in animation. I feel like these 2 episodes did kind of make me feel that way, but Bane in live action is still great. So I'm very appreciative of the moments that we got with him. Again, I have the opinion, though, and I may be completely wrong, I do still kind of see an opportunity of him coming back somehow, but we will see. Okay.
Well, yeah. If they can keep Cobb Vanth in a back the tank after getting shot,
there you go.
They can definitely bring back Cad Bane.
Absolutely. Okay, so Fett Squad. The Fett Squad is shooting at the Free Rancor, which is causing havoc. Din gives Grogu the ball from the Razor Crest as he goes out there to try to attempt to calm this Rancor, but of course that doesn't work, and instead Grogu uses the Force yet again to calm it down, put it to sleep. Grogu decides to cuddle up with it and take a nap. Great stuff. Great stuff. Anything that you want to add or elaborate to any of those moments?
2 things. Grogu calming the Rancor down was just like Ezra with the Loth Wolves, Loth Cats, all kinds of different creatures in Rebels.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, watching the Rancor puppet and Grogu have a moment, these 2 feats of puppetry, I loved that because Grogu is a technological, perfect. I don't even know what to call it. It's just cool. He's a great puppet. He's probably the best puppet that's ever been on screen.
Yeah.
And then combine that with the Rancor, who the first time it's ever been this big as a puppet. It's great to see those 2. I don't even know what to call it. I guess the puppeteers were just doing such a good job that I believed what I was seeing, and it put me in that moment so well. So loved all of that so much. I thought I would love to see more.
Yeah,
like that.
Absolutely. Michelle says, and when we think he can't get any cuter, Grogu snuggles with a Rancor. That is absolute truth right there. All right, so we finally catch up with Fennec, and she does officially wipe out all of the crime lords, Mayor Mok Shaiz, and the Pike Syndicate leader. A pretty brutal scene, if I'm being honest. I wasn't expecting to see the mayor hung the way he was, and she just wipes them all out. I won't add any more to that. I'll pass it to you, DJ. Anything you want to see about it, the final moments of all of these crime bosses?
I just wish Boba had done it instead. That's it.
I think I'm glad that Fennec did it. Because really, outside of that, what would have Fennec done in the finale?
Stayed to be a sniper instead of handing off a rifle to a random Freetown citizen, I guess. But
Sure.
we needed Boba there in Mos Espa. We needed him there for that final fight. You know, you can't take him out. What I would have preferred, and I'm not a writer by any means, and I've seen other stories do it like this, and they probably just didn't want to do it this way. I would have preferred Boba at the end of the episode, like a day later, gone to Mos Eisley, and take him out on his own. Like they're all trying to we got to get off planet now. Let's go. And Boba's like, not today. Seismic charge or something, you know?
Okay.
Anything like that would have been cool. But then again, but you're right. You have a point. What else would Fennec have done? Fennec operates best as a sneaky assassin.
Absolutely.
And she's a good advisor and all that, but she's better as a sneaky assassin, I feel like. And that to me was where this really worked.
Absolutely.
You're right though. Didn't expect anybody to get hung. That's for sure. That was not something I thought we would see.
Absolutely. And Rafa says Fennec is the best killer of the galaxy. Yeah. 100%. 100%. All right. I
disagree.
Who's better?
Vader.
Okay. Of course.
She said the galaxy. I'm going to loop the whole galaxy in here. I'm just saying.
Fair enough. Okay, let's wrap up the episode here. We've got Boba and Fennec walking the streets of Mos Espa with the gained respect of its citizens. The Fett Squad is altogether available for more stories to be told. That's kind of where they wrap up. They all kind of meet in the streets just to indicate that, hey, all of these characters are still alive and well. I think we'll see them again in another story. I think they're just going to maybe pause a little bit on Book of Boba. I am leaning toward there being a second season. I just think it's going to be, like I said, a while. Where are your thoughts on a second season for these characters? Do you think we get it, or do you think we just get sprinkles of it inside the Mandoverse? Because I can see either or, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I can too. I can definitely see either or. I saw somebody on TikTok today point out the fact that Book of Boba Fett has been labeled as this episode, a season finale, not a series finale. And in WandaVision says series finale, you know?
Right.
And
yeah.
That probably means they're going to come back for a second season just for logistics' sake. Ignoring logistics, I don't think there needs to be a second season. I would rather just get let's call Boba and we'll go to Mandalore together, whatever, you know, we'll do it that way. And then Boba can buy into the quote unquote Bantha fodder. You know, I mean, look, if Han Solo can go from jaded to believing in the Force, Boba Fett can go from not saying that someone's religion is crap and taking it all the way to, okay, I'm a believer now, which happens all the time in our world. So, you know what? Fair. It could be something like that. I don't know, but I don't really care, I guess, it's to say, give it to me one way or the other. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to get up in the morning and watch it and make eggs and bacon afterward. I mean, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And for me, if they go that way, awesome. If not, just put it in Mando 3.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I fall. I feel like if there's a second season of Book of Boba Fett, the destruction of the Pike Syndicate there on Tatooine would have to impact someone greater for there to be a direct connection to a second season. But if that was it, as far as the Pikes being the true big bad there, then I think it's possible to just continue this story elsewhere inside the Mandoverse. So we'll see. We'll see what they have in store, and I'm sure I'll check out whatever they decide to do. But we're not done with those characters. I do know that they're toys in a sandbox. They're going to keep on bringing them in wherever in the Mandoverse anytime it's possible. But then we get the next story tease. Din and Grogu take off in the N1 for their next adventure. Of course, this is probably seemingly Mando Season 3, but we get the moments of Grogu being inside that droid area inside the N1, tapping on the glass, telling Dad to go faster. It's too much fun. Great moments, and I can't wait to pick up on their adventure. Nothing else to add really to that, but what did you think, DJ, of this shot, of this scene, and of the fact that the Book of Boba Fett wraps with a closing scene of Din Djarin and Grogu?
As far as Boba and his squad, it's too happy of an ending for me. I would have rather it been a little less happy, which is weird because I like happiness. I like being happy. As far as Boba, I mean not Boba. As far as Din and Grogu go, that was great. It actually reminds me a lot of when I was a kid. I lived on this really small road where I grew up, real tiny road, and basically small enough that like two large trucks couldn't go past one another. You had to get off onto like nearly in the ditch to let somebody go by.
Sure.
But when I was really little, my dad had this old Cadillac and he bought from some old lady, and we used to pretend that the lights overhead and the knobs on the radio were a hyperdrive. And so he'd sit in the car, and we weren't going real fast. He's probably maximum 45 miles an hour, down this street. But you could see all the way down. No one was there. So for me, watching Din and Grogu be like, let's go fast, to me reminded me of me and my dad when I was little. And it would be like, all right, setting the nav computer, and we got to make sure that everything's ready. All right, you ready? All right, and punch it. And you just roll down the road. That's what it reminded me of a lot. So for me, it was really cool watching that set up. I don't care that it ended on Din Djarin and Grogu, because this is Mandalorian season 2.5.
Same.
It's 2.5. It's been said it's 2.5. It beyond the jokes, and that's okay. That's okay, because that means that by the end of this year, Force willing, we will see more Din Djarin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Grogu.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I just wanted to make sure to see where you were as well. Okay, credits roll, but we're not done. We get an end credit scene of the Bacta tank and a modder working to revive Cobb Vanth. So this end credit scene for me is 1,000% confirmation that we are coming back to Tatooine in the Mandoverse, regardless of what story or show they decide to do that in. But number two, I have to admit, this may have been my own fault, but this end credit scene was a little bit of a, like, oh, is that it kind of moment? Because I just felt like it was too heavily implied already that everybody watching the show already knew that Cobb Vanth was alive and well, or not well, but alive, and he was going to make a return. But I get it. It's a grounded story, and showing Timothy Olyphant is coming back as Cobb Vanth is a great and big deal. Those were my thoughts, my initial reactions from it. What about you, DJ?
I think it's great that he's coming back. I definitely wanted to see more Cobb Vanth after he was shot. I was like, man, I really want to get him in the season finale.
Yeah.
But hopefully he's back in Mando for sure.
Absolutely. All right. Well, listen, guys. Michelle says, and Cobb's hair was still perfect, even in Bacta. For sure. For sure. That's it for the Book of Boba Fett after shows, man. We have wrapped. We have finished it up. I feel like we have really just had some incredible moments, incredible laughs, incredible times with you guys in the live chat, in our Mando chat, as we have now along the way came up with that name while covering Boba Fett. We appreciate everybody, our podcast listeners, listening on all airwaves and checking out our thoughts on the Book of Boba Fett. After shows will return whenever Kenobi comes back. We'll be back live on Tuesdays to discuss predictions. Maybe when Bad Batch comes, because maybe that still does come before Kenobi. Who knows? But after shows are not going anywhere. Prediction shows are not going anywhere. I feel like I was mixing those two up there for a second. Predictions, spoiler discussions, they're not going anywhere, folks. So be sure, if you haven't already, subscribe on whatever platform you're on, especially YouTube. And I say that now because we are one subscriber away from 150. It'd be great to hit that 150 mark to officially end cap the series of the Book of Boba Fett. So, I appreciate it to everybody out there. DJ, any final words, any final thoughts that you would like to share with our listeners?
This will be the last episode. I wear this thing to close it out. So, thanks for being here, everybody.
Absolutely. All right, let's get out of here. We'll see you next time. And as always, we have spoken.